Get your stuff out. No. I'm changing the locks in 5 minutes. The door slammed open so hard the chain snapped. Emily's hand flew to her daughter's shoulder, pulling 8-year-old Lily behind her as Mr. Carver filled the doorway. Thunder rolled outside, the hallway light flickering over his cheap suit and the eviction notice crumpled in his fist. It's pouring, Emily said, voice shaking. You said I had until Friday. That was before you forgot the 3rd rent in a row, he sneered, stepping into the tiny apartment like he owned the air in it. You're done here. Pack it up or I'll put it on the curb myself. Cops will back me. Rain hissed against the window pane. The power had already flickered twice that day, the old radiators clanged like they were dying. Emily clutched the hem of her thrift store sweater, eyes burning. I paid what I could, she said. I showed you the paycheck. I'm catching up. I just need one more. He grabbed the framed photo off the table, the one of Emily in happier days with a man in tactical gear and a big grin, his arm around her shoulders. A brown dog's head poked in from the bottom of the frame, tongue lolling. Carver snorted. Should have stayed with your hero SWAT boyfriend instead of whining to me. He's not my boyfriend, she snapped before she could stop herself. And this is illegal. You didn't file. He opened the door wider. The wind drove sheets of cold rain into the hallway. Illegal? He jammed a finger toward her. You're behind. You let that mutt scratch up my floor when you still had him. You bring trashy delivery guys up all night. I got complaints. You want to talk illegal, single mom? Lily flinched at the word. Emily bent, whispering, Go grab your backpack, honey. Her heart pounded so loud she barely heard herself. She'd promised Lily they'd never be on the street again. After Jake left, after the arguments about his dangerous job, she'd sworn she'd build something stable. And now, a few missed shifts at the diner when Lily got sick, one bounce check and the whole thing crashed. Carver strode past her into the living room, yanking cushions off the thrifted couch, scooping clothes off a chair. You got 5 minutes? Then this is all going in the dumpster. You can't just. He grabbed her laundry basket, walked straight to the stairwell and dumped it. Socks, uniforms, Lily's toy bunny tumbled down toward the front door and the storm outside. Stop. Emily lunged after him, feet slipping on the wet stair. She skidded, catching herself on the rail as pain shot up her wrist. Behind her, Lily started crying. Please, Emily said, voice small now. She's cold. We have nowhere to go. Carver didn't even look at Lily. Should have thought of that before you chose to be a charity case. He stepped aside, gesturing toward the open front door, where rain was blowing in sideways. Out. I've got a guy coming to see this place tomorrow. Someone who can actually pay. Emily stood frozen on the stairs, the storm roaring like an ocean beyond the door, her daughter's sobs cutting through her. Her phone was in her pocket, heavy as a brick. One call. One number she'd deleted twice and memorized anyway. Her ex Jake. The SWAT officer. Emily swallowed, fingers trembling as she pulled the phone out. Carver was watching, a smug little smile on his lips. You call the cops on me, he said softly, and I'll make sure social services hears about how you keep your kid in a dump like this. Her thumb hovered over Jake's name on the screen as another thunderclap shook the building. Then the phone slipped from her wet fingers and bounced once on the stair. The screen lit up with an incoming call, from an unknown number. For a second, Emily just stared at the glowing screen. Unknown number. No one called her except the diner, bill collectors and Jake when he felt guilty enough. Her stomach twisted. Carver snatched the phone off the step before she could move. Who's this? Another bill you're ducking? He squinted at the screen, then hit decline, and slid the phone into his own pocket like it was his. Hey. Emily's voice cracked. That's my phone. You can have it back when you're out. He leaned in close enough that she could smell stale coffee on his breath. Or I can tell the next person in this unit you left it behind with the rest of your junk. Either way, I'm done wasting time. Lily appeared at the top of the stairs, backpack sagging on her tiny shoulders, clutching her drenched bunny. Mom? I'm cold. The words were a knife. Emily shoved past Carver, scooped up an armful of what clothes she could reach from the stairwell, and forced a smile she did not feel. It's okay, baby. We're just going for a drive. Adventure, remember? She lied because it's what parents do when the truth is too ugly for little ears. 10 minutes later, their entire life was jammed into the back seat and trunk of her old Honda. Rain hammered the roof as Emily buckled Lily into the front seat, then ran back to the building. Mr. Carver, please, my phone? He stood inside the warm hallway, dry and calm. I'll text you when I decide where to mail it, he said. Assuming you still have an address. The door clicked shut. The lock turned. Outside, Emily stood in the downpour, hair plastered to her cheeks, chest tight. Her bare wrist throbbed. Her jacket clung to her skin. Inside the car, Lily's thin shoulders shook with silent sobs. Emily climbed behind the wheel and turned the key. The engine coughed, sputtered, died. She tried again. Nothing but a weak clicking sound, like the car was laughing at her. "Mom?" Lily whispered. "Are we stuck?" Emily pressed her forehead to the steering wheel. Somewhere in her chest a dam cracked. She could see it now, sleeping in the dead car outside their own former home, Lily's fever from last week coming back, social services swooping in because she couldn't keep a roof over her kid's head. Her hand moved on its own, digging into her pocket for a phone that wasn't there. "Jake," he'd said the last time they spoke, "if you ever really need me, call. I don't care what happened between us." She hadn't believed him. Not really. But now. She looked up at the dark windows of the building. Carver's shadow moved behind a curtain. He'd taken her phone but not her memory. She still knew Jake's number. Emily grabbed an old receipt and a pen from the glove box, scribbled the number down from memory, then pushed the door open and ran through the rain toward the 24-hour gas station at the corner. Lily watched her go, wide-eyed, hugging the bunny. Inside the flickering fluorescent light, Emily dropped a handful of quarters on the counter. "Can I use your phone?" "Please, it's an emergency." The sleepy clerk slid the landline toward her. Her fingers shook as she dialed. Miles away, in the back of an armored van rolling through another part of the city, SWAT officer Jake Walker felt his own phone buzz inside his tactical vest. The brown mutt curled at his feet. Ranger lifted his head, ears twitching. Jake glanced at the screen between radio updates and flashing lights. "Emily?" He felt his heart stop for half a beat as he answered. What's wrong?" If you want to know how this story ends, subscribe to the channel and don't miss the next chapters. The connection crackled with static and rain. "Jake?" Emily's voice sounded thin, distant, like it was coming from underwater. I'm sorry to call you at work. I didn't know who else to." "Where are you?" Jake snapped, already signaling to his team leader with a raised finger. The van was idling now, their operation had just wrapped. He could smell sweat, gun oil, wet nylon. Ranger's tail thumped once, sensing his tension. "We're in the car. Outside my old place." A hollow laugh. "Guess it's not my place anymore." Lightning flashed in the slit of window above Jake's head. He could hear a child coughing faintly on the line. "Lily?" he said. "She's okay," Emily said automatically. Then quieter, "She's not okay. Jake, he threw us out. In the middle of the storm. My car won't start. He took my phone. I didn't know what else to do." Heat rushed up Jake's spine. "Who threw you out?" "My landlord. Carver. He said he'd call social services if I made trouble." Jake closed his eyes for a beat, fighting the old surge of anger that got him in trouble with captains and ex-girlfriends. Ranger whined softly, pressing his head against Jake's knee. His team leader, Morales, raised an eyebrow. "Problem?" Jake covered the phone with his hand. "Family emergency," he muttered. "I'll explain later." Into the phone he said, "Stay in the car. Lock the doors. Don't go back inside, do you hear me?" "I'm coming." "You're on duty," Emily protested. "I shouldn't have called. I'll figure something out." "Emily." His voice cut through. "I'm coming." He ended the call before she could argue. Morales watched him strip off his helmet, his vest, moving fast. "Walker, if you drive like you did last time, I'm writing you up." "Then write me up," Jake said. "My kid is sitting in a dead car in this storm because some slumlord thinks he's God." Ranger hopped to his feet, shaking out his coat, ready. Morales sighed. "Take the dog. And take an unmarked. Report back." 5 minutes later, Jake was gripping the wheel of an old unmarked Crown Vic, wipers on high, Ranger pacing in the backseat. The city blurred past in streaks of red and white. Every pothole sent a spray of water up over the hood. As he turned onto Emily Street, anger hardened into something cold. He remembered their fights, her begging him to be less reckless, his frustration that she didn't understand why he needed to do this job to save people. He hadn't been there when her mom died. He hadn't seen her cry over bills. He told himself walking away was better for them both. Now he saw the Honda sitting under the one broken streetlight, rain pouring over it like a waterfall. Inside, a tiny shape hunched in the passenger seat. Jake pulled in behind them. Before he could even kill the engine, Ranger was at the back window, whining. Then Jake saw movement at the apartment building door. "Carver." The man stepped out under the awning, dry, smug, talking to someone on his phone. He laughed, actually laughed, as he gestured toward Emily's car like the whole thing was a joke. Jake's hand tightened on the steering wheel. He opened the door, rain slamming into him like a wall, and started toward the building. Behind him, Ranger slipped his nose past the half-closed door and pushed it open wider, trotting at his handler's side. Carver turned, confused by the sight of a broad-shouldered man in a dark jacket and a brown mutt padding silently through the rain. Jake lifted his badge just enough for the landlord to see the letters. "Mr. Carver?" he said, voice low. The color drained from the man's face. Carver's smirk faltered when he caught the word police on the leather. This is private property," he stammered, phone dipping from his ear. "You can't just." Jake kept walking until the rain off his shoulders spattered Carver's shoes. Ranger planted himself between them, hackles just barely raised, amber eyes locked on the landlord. "You threw a woman and her child out in the middle of a severe thunderstorm," Jake said. "No notice. No sheriff. No court order. That about right?" Carver's eyes darted to the Honda. "They're behind on rent. I've got rights. You're not even in uniform. I don't need a uniform to recognize an illegal eviction." Carver recovered some of his swagger. "She called you, huh?" His lip curled. "Should have guessed. She flaunted that picture of you like some kind of trophy. What are you, SWAT? Must be real nice, busting down doors while other people pay their bills." Lightning spidered across the sky behind him, turning the world stark white for a heartbeat. Jake stepped closer. "Name's Officer Walker. And that woman in your car? She worked doubles at the diner for months. She skipped meals so her kid could eat." "I know because I've watched her do it." Carver snorted. "Then maybe she should have married better." Ranger gave a low, warning growl. Jake put a hand on the dog's collar. "Here's what's going to happen," he said. "You're going to hand over her phone. You're going to put in writing that you forced her out without proper procedure. Then you're going to let her back in until a judge says otherwise." Carver's eyes hardened. "Or what? You gonna kick in my door, SWAT man? Make a mistake on your report?" He was too confident, Jake realized. Too relaxed. People who knew they were in the wrong were usually more nervous around badges. "Been doing this a while, have you?" Jake asked. Carver shrugged. "Tenants who can't pay are like weeds. You pull them out before they drag down the property value. No one's ever complained. Not officially." "That's a lie," came a voice from behind them. Emily stood by the car now, Lily's hand wrapped in hers, soaked through, chin lifted despite the shiver that ran through her. Her eyes flashed. "He shut off the heat for 3 days in January," she said. "Told us if we didn't like it we could leave. He lost work orders when the stairs were broken. Mrs. Ortiz in 2B fell and broke her wrist. He told her if she sued, he'd have immigration at her door." Jake felt his jaw clench. He looked back at Carver. "Is that true?" Carver spread his hands. "You going to take the word of a broke waitress and some illegal over a respectable property owner?" The word, illegal, hung in the air like a bad smell. Jake's radio crackled softly at his hip. Morales's voice, "Walker, status check. You alive out there?" Jake keyed the mic without looking away from Carver. 10-4. "I'm with a landlord who thinks the law doesn't apply to him. I might need a unit to document an illegal eviction and pattern of harassment." Carver paled again. "You can't." Ranger took one step forward, water dripping off his muzzle, and barked once, sharp. From an upstairs window, a curtain shifted. A child's face appeared, wide eyes watching. Then another. Then a tired woman with dark circles, phone in her hand, clearly filming. Jake saw it all in a glance. "Looks like you've got more than one tenant who wants to talk," he said. Carver's mask cracked, anger flaring. "You're trespassing. All of you. You, hey." He lunged suddenly, not at Jake, but toward Emily, reaching for Lily's arm like he could drag the girl away to prove a point. Ranger moved faster than thought. The dog leaped between them, teeth bared in a snarl Jake had only heard on raids, blocking Carver's path. His paws splashed in a dirty puddle as he held his ground, every muscle coiled, a warning in fur. Carver froze, inches from Lily, staring into a mouthful of sharp white teeth and a pair of eyes that said very clearly, "Try it." Rain crashed around them. Carver slowly raised his hands. "Call off your mutt," he hissed. "Or I swear I'll." Jake's next move would decide everything. "Ranger heel." Jake's voice was steady, but it carried an edge sharp enough to cut glass. The dog instantly backed up to his side, still vibrating with protective energy, low growl rumbling in his chest. Jake stepped into the space Ranger had occupied, putting his own body between Carver and the two people who used to be his whole world. "You so much as raise a hand toward that kid again," Jake said, "and you're going to find out how fast I can get half this city's patrol cars right here." Carver glared past him at Emily. "This is harassment. I'll call my lawyer." "Great," Jake said. "He can explain to the judge why you're throwing families out in the middle of a storm and grabbing at their children." The upstairs window opened with a creak. A woman's voice called down, accented but clear. "I have video. Everything." Him yelling, the girl crying, the dog, all of it. Jake looked up. The woman held her phone out like a shield. Behind her, two kids peered over the sill. "Hang on to that," Jake called. "An officer will be up to take a statement." Carver took a step back, calculating. "You're not even supposed to be here," he muttered. "You're SWAT. This is a civil matter." "Funny," Jake said, "you mentioned calling the cops on Emily not 10 minutes ago. Seems like you wanted us involved when it suited you." His radio crackled again. A dispatcher's calm voice. "Unit requested to 12th and Maple for possible illegal eviction. Caller reports landlord removing tenant property. Any car in the area?" Jake blinked. He hadn't called it in yet. Emily swallowed. I called before I called you," she admitted quietly. "From the gas station. I panicked. I didn't think they'd actually come." Jake flashed her a quick look. There was something like pride in it. He keyed the mic. "Dispatch, this is Officer Walker off duty on scene at that location. Advise responding unit I'll brief them when they arrive." "Copy, Officer Walker." Carver looked trapped now, eyes darting from Jake to Emily to the recording tenants above. For a second, Jake thought he might try to bolt inside and slam the door. Instead, the landlord did something worse. He puffed himself up. "You think one complaint and a couple of shaky videos are going to ruin me?" he sneered. "You have no idea who I know on the city council. I raise the rents because I can. People like her," he jabbed a finger toward Emily, "they're replaceable. There's a wait list of desperate trash begging me for a room." Emily flinched like he'd slapped her. Ranger's growl deepened. Jake felt the old fury boiling again. The same fury that kept him awake after raids went sideways, after seeing good people caught in the crossfire while men like Carver slept just fine. He forced himself to breathe. The badge on his belt felt heavy. "You're right about one thing," he said slowly. "You've gotten away with this because people are desperate. Because they're scared." He reached into his jacket. Carver tensed, eyes flicking instinctively to Jake's hands as if expecting a weapon. Jake pulled out his phone instead. "Smile," he said coldly, turning the camera on. "Because tonight's the night your tenants stop being scared." He began recording, panning from Carver's face to the drenched Honda, to Emily and Lily shivering by the hood, to Ranger sitting like a sentry at their feet. Carver's jaw worked. "You can't." "Sure I can," Jake said. "Public sidewalk. Matter of public interest. And if your friends on the council see this and still want to be seen with you, that's their problem." Headlights swung onto the street, cutting through the rain. A patrol car rolled to a stop at the curb, wipers squeaking, red and blue lights painting the building. Emily's shoulders sagged with something like hope and fear tangled together. Jake slipped his phone into his pocket, the video still rolling. He turned to her, voice quieter. "This doesn't fix everything. Not yet. But it's a start." The cruiser doors opened. Two uniformed officers stepped out, hands resting casually near their holsters, eyes already assessing the scene. One of them, Officer Daniels, recognized Jake immediately. "Walker? What the hell did you walk into?" Jake looked from Daniels to Carver, to the watchful faces in the upstairs window, to Emily clutching Lily. "This," he said, rain dripping from his lashes, "is going to be a lot bigger than just one eviction." And as Daniels approached Carver, notebook out, Jake felt his phone buzz again in his pocket. An unknown number this time, lighting up the screen with a notification that made his blood run cold. "Mr. Carver," the text preview read, "saw the live video. You need to shut this down. We have too much money tied up in that building to let some SWAT officer ruin it." The buzz of the phone cut through the rain and radio chatter. For a second Jake thought it was his. Then he noticed Carver glancing down, hand half hidden by his jacket. A screen lit up, reflected in a puddle at their feet. Jake caught it upside down, just a flash of text, but the words burned into his brain. "Mr. Carver saw the live video. You need to shut this down. We have too much money tied up in that building to let some SWAT officer ruin it." Carver's thumb stabbed the screen, face tightening. When he looked up, he'd pasted his landlord's smile back on. "This is ridiculous," he told Officer Daniels. "I've got every right to protect my property." Daniels flipped open his notebook. You have the right to follow the law, he said. Start by handing over the tenant's phone. Carver hesitated. Ranger gave a soft growl, almost bored, but his gaze never left the landlord's hands. With exaggerated reluctance, Carver pulled Emily's phone from his pocket and slapped it into Daniel's palm. Fine. Take it. She left it on the stairs anyway. Daniels turned it over. Lock screen background is her and her kid, he said. Doesn't scream abandoned property, to me. Emily hugged her arms around herself, teeth chattering. Lily pressed against her hip, wide eyes locked on Ranger like he was the only solid thing in the world. Jake shrugged out of his soaked jacket and draped it over Emily's shoulders. She stiffened, then let out a breath she'd been holding since he arrived. Officer Daniels, Jake said, we've got at least one pattern of harassment, illegal lockout, possible witness intimidation upstairs. That sound like something patrol can handle a report on? Daniels nodded. We'll start with statements. My partner will talk to the tenants. He looked at Emily. Ma'am, you and your daughter are not to be kept out of your apartment tonight. That's not how this works. Carver snapped. You can't force me to. Yes, I can, Daniels said evenly. Or I can stand here while Officer Walker calls the on-duty lieutenant and we make this a very long night for you. For the first time, real fear flickered behind Carver's eyes. He turned toward the building. Fine. She can sleep there tonight. But rent's still due. And when this circus is over. Jake stepped in front of him. You're not going anywhere without giving these officers access to your records, he said quietly. Leases. Notices. All of it. Carver barked a short laugh. Those records aren't here. Jake thought of the text. Too much money tied up in that building. Something larger than one greedy landlord. Then we'll find where they are, he said. Daniels guided Carver toward the car to run his ID. His partner headed upstairs, tenants already crowding the stairwell with phones in hand. Emily shifted closer to Jake. He's going to come after me for this, she whispered. For calling you. For calling the cops. I've seen what he does to people he thinks made him look bad. Jake looked down at Lily, who was staring at Ranger. The dog, sensing her eyes, leaned in and licked her fingers. She giggled weakly, a tiny, fragile sound. He'll go through me first, Jake said. And he's not going to like how that ends. As if on cue, a dark SUV rolled slowly past the building, windows tinted too deep for the hour. It didn't stop. But it didn't speed up either. Jake felt the hairs on the back of his neck stand up. The SUV turned the corner and disappeared. Jake's jaw tightened. Stay with Daniels and his partner, he told Emily. Get inside. Lock the door. I'm going to run a plate. He whistled softly. Ranger with me. The dog fell into step beside him as Jake jogged toward his unmarked car. Behind him, up in the building, a tenant's voice floated down. He's texting somebody about investors, again. I can hear him through the vent. Jake slid behind the wheel, pulled up the onboard terminal, and typed in the partial plate number he'd caught. The system searched. And when the result flashed on the screen, a shell company tied to a familiar local developer with friends on the city council, Jake realized this wasn't just about one dirty landlord anymore. It was about an entire machine. And that machine had just noticed him. By morning the video was everywhere. Emily only realized it when she got to the diner for the breakfast rush and the owner, Mrs. Harper, thrust a phone under her nose. That's you, Harper said, flour on her hands. And that dog. And that jerk landlord. Her voice shook with anger. I didn't know it was that bad, Em. On the tiny screen, someone's shaky recording played. Emily crying in the rain, Lily clinging to her, Carver shouting, Ranger inserting himself between landlord and child. Then Jake, badge flashing, calm and cold in the storm. The caption read, Landlord throws single mom out in the rain, get surprise visit from SWAT officer. There were hundreds of comments already. Strangers calling Carver a monster. Others arguing about personal responsibility. A few asking if someone had set up a GoFundMe for the diner mom. Emily's cheeks burned. I didn't want this online, she muttered. I just wanted him to stop. Harper squeezed her shoulder. If this is what it takes, let it burn. Across town, Jake stood in front of his captain's desk, jaw clenched. You are not a housing cop, the captain said. You are SWAT. You kick in doors when we tell you to. You don't freelance on landlord-tenant disputes that just went viral. Jake swallowed his retort. With respect, sir, he put a kid on the street in a storm. He grabbed at her. He's been threatening tenants for months. And there's a money trail that touches people higher up than him. The captain sighed, rubbing his temples. And you think you're the one to fix city politics now? Ranger lay at Jake's boots, ears flicking as if following every word. I think I was there, Jake said. I think the tenants trust me. And I think if we look the other way because it's just housing, we're no better than he is. For a moment, the older man's eyes softened. You carry every case on your back, Walker. One of these days, it's going to break you. Jake stared at a scuff on the floor. It already did, he said quietly. I just got back up. The captain exhaled. Internal Affairs already called. The councilman who owns that development company saw the video. He's calling this grandstanding and overreach. They want me to rein you in. Jake's fists curled. So what? I apologize for stopping a crime because it made a donor uncomfortable? The captain met his gaze. No. But I am telling you this. You follow procedure to the letter. No improvising. No cowboy stunts. You want to help that woman? Do it by the book. Because the first mistake you make, they'll use it to bury you and every tenant in that building. Jake nodded once. Yes, sir. As he turned to go, the captain added, and Walker? Watch your back. People with that kind of money, they don't like being embarrassed. By late afternoon, the rain had thinned to a drizzle. Emily stepped out the back door of the diner, trash bag in hand, bones aching from hours on her feet and a night of shallow sleep on the couch. Lily had insisted Ranger sleep by her bed, to keep the bad dreams away. She'd almost made it to the dumpster when a loud bang shattered the alleyway. The diner's back window exploded in a spray of glass. Emily dropped the trash bag, heart in her throat, as something heavy thudded to the ground where she'd been standing a second earlier. It was a brick. Tied around it with twine was a folded piece of paper. Hands shaking, Emily crouched and picked it up. The note inside was scribbled in thick black marker, ink bleeding from the damp. Drop the charges. Shut up about the building. Or next time we won't miss. Her stomach dropped. Somewhere inside, Lily was helping Mrs. Harper roll silverware. Behind her, an engine revved. A black SUV, windows tinted, peeled off from the far end of the alley and disappeared into traffic. Emily's legs went weak. She fumbled for her phone with numb fingers and hit the one number she'd sworn she wouldn't lean on again. Jake answered on the first ring. She stared at the shattered glass glittering at her feet. They're not just coming after me at home, she whispered. They're coming after me at work now. There was a beat of silence on the line. When Jake spoke again, his voice was like steel. Don't touch anything. I'm on my way. She turned, and through the jagged hole in the window she could see Lily, peering out with wide, terrified eyes. Glass sparkled on the floor between them like a line she could no longer uncross. By the time Jake and Ranger pulled into the diner's lot, 2 squad cars were already there, lights off but presence obvious. Yellow tape fluttered in the damp breeze across the shattered window. Lily was perched on the counter inside, feet swinging, clutching a styrofoam cup of hot chocolate. Ranger trotted straight to her as soon as Jake opened the door. Ranger, she cried, burying her face in his wet fur. Her shoulders shook. He licked a tear from her cheek and leaned his weight into her, grounding her like a living weighted blanket. Jake scanned the scene. Brick bagged as evidence, note photographed, Officer Daniels talking quietly with Emily and Mrs. Harper. Same SUV? Jake asked as he stepped up. Emily nodded, arms wrapped tight around herself. I think so. I couldn't get the plate. I just froze. That's not freezing, Mrs. Harper said. That's surviving. Daniels held up the bag brick. You've poked the bear, Walker. Someone really doesn't want this going to court. Good, Jake said. Means we're stepping on the right toes. He looked at Emily. I need to show you something, he said. Back at the building. She blinked. Now. Now is when they think they can scare you into backing down, he said. Now is when we show them they picked the wrong people. An hour later they were back on Maple. The rain had finally stopped, leaving the street washed clean but for the cracks. Upstairs, tenants crowded the hallway as Jake and Daniels methodically checked every common area, every unlocked storage room. Rangers sniffed along the baseboards, pausing now and then to investigate an unfamiliar scent. In the basement, the air turned damp and moldy. Bare bulbs swung from the ceiling, casting sickly light over old paint cans and broken furniture. Ranger stopped dead in front of what looked like a solid wall. Jake frowned. What is it, boy? The dog sniffed hard at the cinder block, then pawed once, claws clicking. Emily touched the wall. There's a draft, she murmured. Feel that. A thin line of cool air brushed Jake's wrist. He stepped back, scanning. There, slightly cleaner outline of a door in the grime, handle painted over. Daniels whistled. Well, that's not suspicious at all. They forced it open. Behind the fake wall was a small room stacked with file boxes and a cheap metal desk. On the desk, a laptop, a portable hard drive, and a ledger book thick enough to choke a horse. Jake flipped it open. Handwritten entries stared back. Rents adjusted, off the books, cash withdrawals, kickbacks listed as consulting fees. One column made his blood run colder. Relocation incentives, city official contact, MH. Emily peered over his shoulder. What does that mean? It means, Jake said slowly, your landlord isn't just pushing people around on his own. He's getting paid to move poor tenants out so someone else can move richer ones in. He snapped photos of every page, then carefully closed the ledger. We need a warrant for the rest, he told Daniels. But this? This ties them to the councilman's development company. H. Marcus Hollins. He sits on the housing committee. Daniels blew out a breath. You really know how to pick your fights, Walker? Upstairs, the front door slammed. Heavy footsteps pounded down the hall. Police, a voice shouted. Search warrant for criminal mischief, harassment, and violation of tenant protection statutes. Daniels grinned. That's our backup. Carver's voice floated down, high and panicked. You can't come in here. This is harassment. Jake handed the ledger to Daniels. Get that logged, he said. I'll go say hi. By the time he reached the lobby, 2 more officers had Carver against the wall, cuffing him. The landlord's hair was mussed, shirt half untucked. He looked smaller without his swagger. You think you've won? He spat when he saw Jake. They'll cut me loose. I'm nothing. You don't even know who you're messing with. Jake glanced at the patrol car idling outside. You're wrong, he said. We're just getting to the interesting part. As Carver was loaded into the cruiser, a sleek black sedan pulled up to the curb. A man in an expensive suit stepped out, tie loosened, watching the scene with thinly veiled irritation. Councilman Marcus Hollins. He didn't approach. Just stood there, hands in his pockets, eyes locked on Jake. Ranger moved closer to Jake's leg, ears stiff. Emily followed Jake's gaze. Is that him? She whispered. Jake nodded. That's him. Hollins finally took a few steps forward, offering a politician's practiced half-smile. Officer Walker, he said smoothly. I've heard your name a lot today. Jake's grip tightened on Ranger's leash. Funny, he replied. I was just thinking the same about yours. Hollins' smile never reached his eyes. We should chat. Somewhere more private. About not letting a misunderstanding blow up into something that hurts a lot of good people. Emily felt her stomach clench. She'd heard that tone before, from managers, from Carver, from every man who thought power was a favor he might extend if you played along. Jake's jaw worked. If you have something to say, he said, you can say it at the station. Under oath. For a split second, Hollins' eyes went flat and cold. Then he chuckled, turned toward his car and said over his shoulder, You have a nice dog, officer. Be a shame if all this attention made someone ask whether he belongs on active operations. Jake watched the sedan pull away, mind racing. He'd been threatened before. But never through the one partner who'd never left his side. His phone buzzed. A new message from an unknown number. You're making this bigger than it has to be. Call me back if you care about keeping your badge. He looked up at Emily, at Lily peeking from the stairwell, at Ranger staring trustingly up at him. The machine was moving. And it had just put his career, and maybe his canine partner, on the line. 2 weeks later, Emily sat on a hard wooden bench, Lily's hand clasped in both of hers, facing the 2 doors that would decide everything. Family court to the left. Housing court to the right. The system she'd learned liked to split people into pieces. 1 room for your roof. Another for your kid. Same woman, same life, 2 separate files. Jake paced nearby in a collared shirt and slacks that somehow made him look more nervous than the tactical gear ever had. Ranger lay at his feet in a do-not-pet, working dog vest, though every few minutes Lily's fingers found their way to his fur and he pretended not to notice. You don't have to testify, Emily whispered. They said your statement was enough. Jake shook his head. I wasn't there for you before. I'm here now. They need to hear that from me, not some report. They'd spent the last days buried in meetings with tenant lawyers and city investigators. The ledger had blown things open. Hollins was officially under investigation, his smiling face suddenly not so welcome on campaign posters. But powerful men didn't go quietly. The brick through the diner window had been the ugly kind of threat. The quiet calls to CPS were worse. A woman in a gray blazer appeared in the doorway. Emily Harris, she called. Emily's stomach dropped. That's us. Inside family court, the air felt heavy. The judge, a middle-aged woman with tired eyes, watched them over glasses perched on her nose. On the other side of the aisle sat a CPS worker Emily had met twice, her expression neutral. "Miss Harris," the judge began, "there have been allegations that your current housing situation is unstable and may pose a risk to your daughter's safety. We're here to determine whether temporary placement is necessary while your housing case proceeds." The words hit Emily like physical blows. Her throat tightened. The CPS worker stood. "Your Honor, Ms. Harris has cooperated fully with our visits," she said. "Her daughter is clearly loved and well cared for. The primary concern stems from repeated disruptions caused by the landlord's actions and recent acts of intimidation surrounding an ongoing investigation." The judge turned to Emily. "Ms. Harris, do you feel you can keep your daughter safe at this time?" Emily swallowed. "Your Honor, her voice trembled. She thought of the brick, of the busted lock Carver had forgotten to fix, of the shadows that made Lily flinch. Then she looked at Lily, who sat straighter than any 8-year-old should have to. "I can't promise the world won't throw things at us," Emily said slowly. "I wish I could. But I can promise you this, I will stand between her and whatever comes. I will ask for help when I need it. And I will not let people like my landlord scare me into silence again." Jake shifted, then stood when the judge nodded toward him. He took the oath, his voice steady. "Officer Walker," the judge said, "what is your relationship to Ms. Harris and her child?" He glanced at Emily. "I'm Lily's father," he said. The words hung there heavier than the courtroom air. "And I'm a SWAT officer with the city." Emily blinked. They'd never put it like that out loud, not in a courtroom, not anywhere. "You live with them?" the judge asked. "No, ma'am," Jake said. "We didn't work out. Partly because of my job. But I have been present throughout this situation, and I have seen firsthand that Ms. Harris puts her daughter's safety above everything. When her landlord threw them out, she called the police and then me. Most people in her position would have just disappeared into a motel or their car. She did the hard thing." He took a breath. "I've kicked in doors on guys who hurt their kids. I've carried kids out of places no child should ever see. If I thought for a second Lily was safer away from her mother, I would say that under oath. She is not the problem here. The people abusing their power over her are." Ranger's tail thumped once on the tile. The judge studied them a long moment. Then she leaned forward. "Ms. Harris," she said, "I am not ordering removal at this time. Instead, I am issuing a protective order requiring your landlord and any representatives of his company to have no contact with you or your daughter outside of legal proceedings. CPS will continue to check in, but not with the aim of removal, only support." Emily's knees almost buckled with relief. "In addition," the judge continued, "I am joining this matter with your housing case. The instability is not of your making. The city has an obligation not to let bad actors weaponize our systems against vulnerable families." She banged the gavel once. "Next door 20 minutes. Don't be late." Outside the courtroom, Emily let out a breath that turned into a sob halfway through. Jake's hand hovered at her shoulder, then settled there. "You did good," he said softly. Lily threw her arms around both of them and for a second, they were a family glued together by fear and stubborn love. 20 minutes later in housing court, the atmosphere was different. More transactional, less intimate. Hollins wasn't there, but his lawyer was smooth and dismissive. "Your Honor," the attorney said, "my client had no knowledge of Mr. Carver's independent decisions regarding tenants. The ledger presented is incomplete and—" Jake's phone buzzed. He glanced down, a text from Daniels. "Need you outside ASAP. Hollins trying something." Jake met Emily's eyes. "I'll be right back," he whispered. "Stay with the lawyer. Don't let them rush you." He stepped into the hallway, Ranger at his side. Through the glass doors at the building's entrance, he saw Hollins standing on the sidewalk, talking urgently to a man Jake recognized from mugshots. A fixer, connected to intimidation cases that always seemed to fall apart before trial. The fixer jerked his head toward the parking lot. There, right where Lily liked to run circles while waiting for rides, sat Emily's beat-up Honda, with something small and blinking taped under the rear bumper. Jake's blood iced. Explosive? Tracker? Either way, it meant someone had just taken this beyond threats on paper. He grabbed his radio. "Bomb squad to the courthouse parking lot, code red," he snapped. Possible device on a vehicle tied to the Hollins investigation. As he moved, Ranger lunged, teeth latching onto the back of the fixer's pant leg when the man tried to bolt. Hollins stepped back, hands up, face pale. For the first time, the mask had slipped completely. Inside, unaware, Emily raised her hand as the housing judge asked, Do you have anything else you want to say before I decide whether you can stay in your home? And out in the lot, the tiny light under her car kept blinking. The next 12 hours unfolded like a movie Emily would never have paid to watch. Bomb squad cleared the device. More scare than substance. A cheap tracker rigged with a blinking LED to look sinister. Message sending, one tech muttered. They wanted you to know they could. Holland's fixer wasn't so lucky. Ranger's torn bite on his pant leg had given patrol just enough probable cause to keep him from accidentally wandering off. Once in an interview room with Daniels and a DA investigator, the man folded faster than bad lawn furniture. Look, I just did what they paid me to do, he babbled on video. Carver Holland's, that property company, they wanted the tenants scared out before the city's new rent caps kicked in. The brick, the shut-off heat, the fake CPS calls, it was all part of the plan. Walker stuck his nose in where it didn't belong. Jake watched the recording with his jaw tight. It belonged, he said quietly. It belonged. Back in housing court, the judge reconvened after a flurry of whispered conferences and urgent notes passed to the bench. Ms. Harris, she said, in light of new information regarding coordinated harassment, I am issuing an emergency stay of eviction for you and all current tenants of your building. Furthermore, I am appointing an independent manager to oversee the property while criminal charges proceed. The landlord's seat sat empty. Carver was busy in a different courtroom, facing a different judge on charges that finally fit the damage he'd done. Emily felt the words wash over her like the opposite of the rain that had drenched her that first night. This water didn't sting. It cleaned. Does that mean we can go home? Lily whispered. For now, Emily said. Then, catching the judge's eye, and if they sell the building? The judge's gaze softened. Then the new owners will have to follow the law, she said. And the law will be watching. Weeks passed. The headlines that had screamed about landlord from hell and SWAT officer exposes housing scam moved on to other scandals. But in Emily's world, the ripples stayed. The heat stayed on. The stare got fixed. Mrs. Ortiz's wrist, once a line item in Carver's threats, became evidence in a class action the tenants filed together. A non-profit housing group took over management. Their rep, a woman in jeans and a blazer who actually listened, sat in the lobby with coffee and donuts one Saturday, walking tenants through their rights. Emily picked up extra shifts for a while, but not the kind that stole whole days from Lily. The GoFundMe Mrs. Harper had quietly helped set up paid off the back rent and then some. It was strangers, Emily marveled one night, scrolling through the messages. People who just watched the video. Not just strangers, Jake said. People who recognized themselves. They were in Emily's kitchen, the same cramped one Carver had once sneered at, sharing takeout containers on the counter while Lily and Ranger played an intense game of keep away, with a squeaky toy in the living room. You sure you're okay with him being here? Emily asked, nodding toward Ranger as the dog skidded on the cheap rug. Jake smiled. He thinks this is his second job now. SWAT days, family nights. Emily toyed with her fork. About that. The captain said, the councilman's friends were still pushing to have him reassigned. To punish you. Jake shrugged. Hollins won't be on any housing committees for a long time. Maybe any committees. The DA loves that recording of your friend with the tracker. IA cleared me. They decided it looks bad to discipline the guy who stopped the slumlord ring. Emily studied him. There were new lines at the corners of his eyes. New softness too. How are you? She asked. He blinked. I'm fine. You and Lily are safe. The building's safe. That's all that matters. She shook her head. That's not what I asked. He exhaled. I'm tired, he admitted. Tired of only showing up when something's on fire. Tired of thinking about all the nights you and Lily were freezing in here and I was out playing hero somewhere else. You were saving other people's families, she said. I was just trying to hold ours together. They let the quiet sit between them a moment. From the other room Lily called, Mom. Dad. Look what Ranger can do. They stepped into the doorway to see Lily holding her hand up like a stop sign. Ranger, in mid-bounce toward his toy, froze then sat, tail wagging furiously. He listens to me now, she said proudly. Like he listens to Dad. Jake ruffled her hair. You give clear commands, he said. He likes that. Later, after Lily was in bed and Ranger lay snoring beside her, Emily and Jake stood in the doorway, watching their daughter's chest rise and fall. I can't pretend everything's fixed, Emily said softly. We still live paycheck to paycheck. One emergency and it all tilts again. Jake nodded. I know. But, she hesitated then took a breath. If you wanted to try, slowly, To be more than the guy we call when things go wrong. I wouldn't hate that. Jake's throat worked. I don't know how to be less intense, he said. I don't know how to not carry every bad thing home. Emily smiled faintly. Maybe you don't have to drop the weight, she said. Maybe you just share it. With us. With him. She nodded toward Ranger, snoring softly, one paw twitching like he was chasing something happier in his dreams. Jake slipped his hand into hers. I can try, he said. Months later, on a gray afternoon, the tenants gathered in the courtyard for a small ceremony. The nonprofit had hung a new sign over the entrance with the building's name and affordable housing community, in neat letters. Someone had invited a local reporter. They wanted a quote from the SWAT officer who started it all. Jake cleared his throat in front of the microphone, suddenly more nervous than any raid. This started because a landlord thought he could throw a mom and her kid into a storm and no one would care, he said. It only changed because that mom spoke up even when she was scared. Because neighbors filmed when they could have looked away. Because a dog growled at the right time. Laughter rippled through the crowd as Ranger barked once on cue. He looked at Emily, at Lily holding her hand, at Mrs. Ortiz, at the kids leaning over the railings above. I wear a badge, he said. I have training and a vest and backup. But the truth is, the bravest person that night wasn't me. It was the woman who decided she deserved better than being treated like trash because she was broke. It was everyone who hit record, instead of shutting their door. Afterward, as people drifted back inside, Emily nudged him. Since when did you get good at speeches? He grinned. Since I started listening to you. They walked up the repaired stairs together, Ranger trotting ahead, nails clicking on the clean wood. At their door, Lily turned back, serious. Mom? Dad? Yeah, Bug? Emily said. Are there more places like this, Lily asked, where landlords are mean and nobody helps? Jake and Emily exchanged a look. Yeah, Jake said honestly. There are. Will we help them too? She asked. Emily squeezed her daughter's hand. We'll do what we can, she said. We'll speak up. We'll vote. We'll help neighbors when things look wrong. Ranger nudged Lily's leg, tail swaying. And we'll always have a good watchdog, Jake added. Lily smiled, then darted inside to set up a tea party for her dog. In the hallway, Emily leaned against the doorframe watching Jake. What? He asked, self-conscious. Nothing, she said. Just, thank you. For showing up when it rained. And for staying after the storm. He thought of that first night, of her silhouette in the car, of the way his stomach had dropped hearing Lily's cough through the phone. Thank you, he replied. For calling. Because justice, he was starting to understand, wasn't a single raid or arrest. It was 1,000 small choices to stand with the people who had the least and lose the most. And you, if you saw a landlord throwing a family out into the rain, or a boss humiliating someone who couldn't afford to quit, what would you do in that moment?